Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Raw and Real, our last one of the year.
That's crazy.
It's hard to believe. I mean, it really truly is. Uh, Man, where has the time gone? I mean, we've been on a lot of journeys. Been on a lot of journeys in this short amount of time, and
It's putting it mildly.
man alive, it's been fun. I mean, it's never had a dull moment, but it has definitely been an exciting adventure and one we've enjoyed sharing with all of you. And wow, kind of excited to see what next year holds, where we're going to go, and the things that we're adding to it. I mean, I know we've got more stuff that we're adding to the ministry as far as getting our message out and all the good outlets and stuff, But I mean, it's definitely, man, it's just been overwhelming to me. It has been.
It would be nice to see the things that we put into motion this year come to pass.
I'm just going to turn this light on. I don't think we have enough. It seemed darker in here for some reason. Maybe it's just me, but there we go. No, I mean, for sure, it's going to be cool to see where things wind up.
Yeah, for sure.
Bear with Jennifer. She's, bless her heart, been fighting. I don't think she ever got over it. It kind of started before Christmas, and I think she fought through some of it, but I don't think it ever just went away.
No, now it's out to take me out. I'm pretty for certain.
She's had a rough few days, and I even told her like we had postponed or rescheduled or whatever, and she insisted that we push through. So here we go. So bear with us for a little bit.
Feels good to sit up instead of lay down, maybe.
I can imagine.
Get dressed. I don't know.
I had you down for most of the day yesterday.
Yeah, you tried.
Yeah, I was trying to handle the chores, the dishes, the cooking, all that mess. So, but no secret, I either cook as much or a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I like to cook. I mean,
yeah.
I guess it's funny. That's the one area that I'm pretty in common with the Robertson crew over there in Louisiana, because I like to cook. I don't know. It's not that you don't cook or cook well. I love to cook.
Yeah.
She messed up and got me a pellet grill a few years ago, and
I didn't mess up. I knew exactly what I was doing.
that thing is pretty awesome. It'll do anything you want it to.
Best purchase of whatever year that was.
It was 2 or 3 years ago, I think.
It's been a while.
It'll smoke. It'll do anything you want it to, man. It's pretty awesome. Man's next best friend, so to speak. But we have an interesting topic for today, and it's something that, I don't know, when we sat down, it was just something that's always been on our heart and something we wanted to get in before the end of the year. But it's important to us because our vision has always been to do things differently with our kids. Not that we had a bad childhood or anything like that. It was just we both were pretty animate on one specific topic, and we wanted to really be involved with our kids. Both of our parents had to work extensively to stay afloat and to stay on top of things, and so we missed a lot of time with them just due to life and everything else. And so we wanted to maybe try it a different way and see what the results would be. And I have to say, I mean, so far I'm not disappointed. It's not been as easy because we've had to sacrifice a lot of comforts and securities. But I think we were going to do that anyway based on the fact that we were going after things in a different way, because neither one of our parents were really involved in ministry in itself, and so they worked secular jobs and did what they knew to do to the best of their abilities, and that's just that, and we kind of found out early on in life that we had a calling on our lives, and we knew it was going to be a journey, but I don't think we ever realized it was going to be the extents and craziness that it was.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, overall, we've done a lot with our kids that I'm grateful for. We got to spend almost a year of just straight traveling on the road with them, and then when that season was over, it was time for the next season, and I'm not disappointed. I'm not. We've been able to be there for them in ways that I don't think some parents get to.
Yeah, we've definitely been fortunate in that area. Not to say that the way we did them was right or correct or what everybody should do, but
right.
It was something we were passionate about, so we, like you said, we laid down a lot of comforts, we laid down a lot of desires,
Mm-hmm.
our personal desires.
Mm-hmm.
We had to forgo some things. I mean, certain things that we wanted by a certain age were off the table because we chose to go a different route.
Yeah.
And I think the world views that as you're poor or you're ignorant.
Failure.
It's a failure,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a failure in our eyes. We just wanted to do things differently on that aspect.
Yeah.
I think experiences meant more to us in that time than money.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
Getting to take them to do things. And yes, it costs money, and we were making money, but we weren't putting that into a 30-year house payment or, an outrageous car payment or anything like that. We were spending it other places. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of people thought we were struggling, we were poor, we were, this or that, and that wasn't the case at all. We were just not doing the norm of what parents have to do for the most part.
No, and that's it. It's just that word again, normal. You always had a good point on it, and you brought it to my life early on in our relationship. But it was, what is your normal? And just because you see, somebody else's normal doesn't mean that it has to be your normal.
Right.
You can't put normal in a broad group. It has to be a personal form, a personal insight. And it was something that I'd never thought about before. It was something I never looked at. But it is very crucial to understand that, my normal and what our normal is this family doesn't necessarily mean that it's your normal and that's what you should live by. But yet that's the standard that our society holds everybody to. It's like what's trending or what's
you're
in for now.
You're supposed to be married by a certain age. You're supposed to have kids by a certain age. You're supposed to have a house by a certain age. You're supposed to have,
401k.
You're supposed to. That's the norm. That's what people, and a lot of people around us were like, "What are y'all doing?" I mean, we've answered that question probably more than any question ever, but. And people would want to be that way and do that, but you have to let go of some things. We had to let go of a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
To do that.
That was the number one question I got asked on the road, either in private message or somebody commenting on a post I made or whatever. It was, it must be nice to get to do that. Like, how are y'all getting to do that? And that was my answer. Like, you're gonna have to give up some comfort zones.
Yeah.
The age-old statement, in order to get what you've never received, you're going to have to, do what you've never done. And that's what we did. And the biggest part of that, I think, like I was getting at, was parental involvement, and that's kind of the topic for today. I titled it Not Enough Parental Involvement, but it can go many different ways, as far as anybody wants to take it. Proverbs 22:6 says to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that's true on so many levels. No matter what we do with our kids, positive or negative, that's how they're going to go.
Yes.
That's how they're going to be. We've seen it in, I guess you call it helicopter parenting, where the parents hover over their kids all the time. It affects them in some shape, form, or fashion. It affects them, whether it's a good or a negative. It does have an effect. If you're not involved, we've seen that affect kids too, like where their parents aren't in their lives as much, and they're having to fend for themselves on a regular basis and do this and do that. You watch those people grow up, and it has a lot of effects on their lives and how they handle things in society and how they deal with things on the day to day and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I was that parent. When I worked as a nurse, my schedule was all over the place.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of times that I didn't get to put them to bed.
Right.
I don't think it's affected our kids. I don't think they're gonna turn out as heathens because mommy wasn't here to put them in bed for the first whatever years of their life. But it's choices that you truly have to make. If you're giving into one thing, you're sacrificing something else. No matter what you're doing, your yes to one thing is a no to another thing.
Absolutely.
And it's a hard balance. And so, don't take this as us saying this is the only way to do this, because you will find your normal, what you want for your family and what you want for your kids. I think mainly we're just talking about scripturally, because we've missed it there as well. There were times that we weren't living for God, and our kids probably didn't know Jesus even existed. You know what I mean?
I know the whole time we were on the road, that was not our motive. We were literally just, we were running from a few things. It was a hard time in our lives, and I'm talking about the five of us, for the reason my mom was really, really going through a lot of sickness and things. And there was a big demand on time. In fact, there was never enough time. We constantly being weighted down with the burdens of that time. And we kind of felt like we needed a break, that it wasn't being totally fair to them. Like they were being maybe overwhelmed by the situation and overrun by the circumstances. And so, I went on the road selling coolers, and you were doing a travel nurse thing, and we were just trying to go explore and see the country and hunt and fish and camp and, live life and just try to spend some rebound time with them. I think God really wasn't in the picture in that time, and he could have been, in a lot of ways, but he wasn't.
I think he was more than you think. I just think we truly, for the first time ever, laid down our comfort zones to go do something bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in a way, I think we were running from some things that were going on at home. But he intervened on that, in every area. If you look back and the divine connections and appointments and things that weren't supposed to be were. And we were getting his story and his testimony out there. So, I do think he was a big part of that. Am I saying that we were where we were supposed to be spiritually? No, probably not. But I do think he was a bigger part of that than we maybe
giving credit.
Because I think we were down on ourselves because we didn't feel worthy.
True.
You know what I mean?
From that aspect, yeah, it was probably preparation for this time that we're in now. Learning that it's okay to be different, learning that it's okay to not operate in the standard norm of society. Like, yeah, I'm sure it was. So, I mean, that's a valid point. I mean, really and truthfully. One of the questions that I wrote down topic wise was, are we involved enough as parents in these crucial times in their lives? And I think that ranges differently for everybody. Like, a crucial time for one may be have a different meaning than it does for somebody else, but like, are we interacting with our kids enough? Are we spending enough time interacting with them? Do we spend more or less quality time with them, like playing games, board games, outside activities and things like that? That was crucial for us when we were on the road, because we couldn't take a lot with us. We 5 of us in a car. We can't take all the comforts from home, and at the time our kids didn't have electronics. They didn't have the cell phones and the computers and things. We did a lot of interacting with them. Like, when you weren't working, we were on trips or going to see things, or we were playing at the park, like things like that. And I think that was very influential at that particular time in their life, because they still talk about it today, like all the different stuff we would do. I mean, we lived in one town for a while that, there was literally nothing to do. I mean, the town may have been 400 people.
Maybe.
And there was a park, and at that park was a rodeo ground.
Yeah.
And we spent more time at that park and that rodeo ground just pretending and doing things. And I mean, they weren't little bitty. They were in that mid-range, but we just found the joys in the simplest of things. And even when we were over in Scottsbluff, we would hike the bluff every day, and we learned about the Oregon Trail hands-on, and I mean, just all the things. And there was the park. We played all kinds of stuff at that park. We did all kinds of things on a daily basis, and I think it was very crucial for that time. Like I said, growing up, I didn't get to have all of that time with my parents, and I don't know.
And it's almost to a fault, because now, like, they expect us to be like that. You know what I mean?
It has.
Like me being sick, and it's kind of been pretty. I mean, the wind's nasty, but like, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, they want to go play tennis, and they want to go do this, and they'll go by themselves, but they want us to go.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
So, like, almost to a fault, we've created I don't know, they're not attached to us, but they like being around us more than I think most kids do.
We are a close-knit family. And that's good. I've always wanted that. I've always wanted this family to be close. I was an only child, and so things were a lot different for me, from my perspective, because we were close, but we weren't as close, I guess you would say. I don't know how to explain that properly without it sounding negative, which I'm not trying to be, but I mean, me and mom and dad weren't as close as the 5 of us are, is what I'm trying to say. Like, we're very tight-knit. We like, they still look to us. I mean, we go play blitzball and spike ball and tennis and golf, and I mean, we go, to like for golf and different things like that. We do stuff like that all the time.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer in God made us in His image, okay? And in the same aspect, we've made our kids in our image. And that could mean anything. In our instance, we've created this, like you just said. We created this tight-knit group and way of thinking. So in return, I feel like they're going to pass that down to their kids.
Yeah.
And they're going to expect us to be that way with their kids, our grandkids. They're going to expect it. It's going to become a normal way of thinking. And we have so much influence on our kids. And I know life gets busy. I know life gets hectic. It gets crazy. And so we don't intend to, but sometimes we could be passing down negative traits and characteristics into our kids that we're not meaning to. We're just trying to handle life as it's coming at us from all directions. But I think it's important that we stop and take the time to see what kind of impact and influence we have on our kids.
Oh, absolutely. And the fights, I mean, they didn't stop just because we're together all the time.
No.
Like, I think they kind of intensified.
Probably. They get tired of being around each other all the time.
They do get tired, and they just want to break, or they just need space. And that's hard to do when you're on the road. It's hard to give anybody space. We needed space that we didn't have.
True story.
I mean, granted, we had a house when we lived in Scottsbluff, and so everybody could kind of spread out. They
It
had
was
their
better.
own rooms. They had,
Coming out of a hotel room for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was more of a suite. I mean, don't kid yourself. We weren't at the Marriott. Nothing against where we were. In fact, if they're watching, we still miss the lodge there in Bassett, Nebraska.
It was a neat place.
It was, but they kept it. They kept it old school for a reason, and it had a lot of history and stuff behind it. But I mean, it was a multi-room area with a substantial bathroom shower situation. I mean, it was good, a little sitting area in between, but I mean, it was a little different having a house again, and kind of things felt more normal. Here to go with that word again, where we could spread out and have our time if we needed to or whatever. So, what else you have?
I just kind of wrote down like our responsibilities as parents.
Okay.
Not just. I mean, we all have to work in some shape, form, or fashion, and then there's a lot of people that, you're a single parent, and so you're trying to figure out that road, and so, like I said earlier, you just have to figure out what is best for you and yours, and what you want out of life for you and your family. So I just kind of wrote down some of our responsibilities as a believer. And that's just to pray for our children constantly. And that doesn't stop just because they've accepted Jesus into their hearts. I mean, I think we still pray for our kids when they're long gone. Teach them His ways. Be a living example. And I know we've missed that a lot. And then like discipline. Disciplining them in the same manner that the Lord disciplines us. And when you're trying to raise your kids and spend time with them and develop a relationship, discipline is hard because we have one that absolutely despises discipline.
It's like hitting a chained up dog.
Yes.
Is the best way to describe it.
Yes, and there's no rationalization, there's no talking about it, it's just, you hate me. You know what I mean? And that's been a hard road to navigate, being as close as we are to, because you're like, I just went and played this with you, I just went and did this with you, I just went and bought you this, and just because you did something wrong and I'm disciplining you on it, like, I don't know where that gets flip-flopped. And so that's been a hard one for me, and being an example, because we miss it daily. We miss it on the daily, and my biggest hope is that they truly do know that I've tried every day. But we have been through the video game situation, and it's an addiction. It's a problem, and it's been a problem, and we let it go on. We've allowed it to, really take its toll. We were going through things, or we'd be sick, or we'd be, life would just hit you, so it's easier just to say, go play, go do what you want to do, and that caused huge problems.
Well, it did, and even more so when we tried to, regulate the direction it was going, because we realized like there's no excuse. There's no excuse. We can't stop this job just because this one becomes a little more demanding.
Right.
We've got to juggle both of them accurately. And a lot of times I think as parents, we feel like there is no right answer. We're doing the best we can. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that. And I think that was why we wanted to talk about this, was to encourage, don't feel like you're the only one going through it. There's others of us out there that are still, trying to navigate all this stuff to the best of our ability and probably failing on a daily basis. So, when we tried to regulate that, it caused problems. And so then we're trying to handle that correctly on top of this and on top of that. Yeah. And it just seems to keep piling up over and over and over. And, but I think that the point that we're trying to make is find that balance between the time that you need that's healthy for you to keep going and rejuvenate yourself, and just blowing them off to the point that it's just easier this way, and it's going to cause more ramifications down the road.
Yeah.
So, try to find that balance, because, I've seen a little bit of different turns here in the past couple of years. I have one that went from wanting to be outside, running, going, and playing all the time with friends, and he's been, all over, just interacting with friends. And a lot of those friends weren't a good influence for him at the time.
Yeah.
They maybe had a different lifestyle or a different way of seeing things than he did, and I didn't feel like they were good for him. But I didn't want to seem biased or prejudice in any shape, form, or fashion, because it had nothing to do with, their race or anything like that. It was just, not everybody is going to line up with your way of thinking and the direction you want to go. And so you're trying to teach how to navigate that from his perspective, because I didn't want him being mean. I didn't want him being rude to him. But sometimes they would butt heads, and it's the same ones that I felt were a negative influence, and trying to show and teach that, how to handle that, because that's never going to go away. They're going to run into people all through life from here on out that are maybe not going to line up with the direction they want to go. Yeah. And we can't be mean. We can't be discriminatory towards them. We can't be, ugly about it. We have to handle it in a dignified, positive manner. And I think that's our job as parents, is to teach those navigational skills, to teach those positive traits of integrity and character and morals, and how to be productive members of society, and how, to be men and women, however the case may be, that are influential in the world for a positive and not a negative. Because there's too much negativity. That's going to happen on its own, no matter what. And so it's up to us, men. I think it's important that we teach our sons how to be men, godly men, and right standing in the world, to where we can get a point across without putting somebody down. And dads that have daughters, like, it's important that we instill into them the crucial things that only a man can pass down to a daughter: how to carry herself, how to see herself, how to protect herself and take care of herself, just as important as it is for moms to play that crucial role in a son's life. Yeah. That only a mom can teach. Just like y'all teach, your daughters how to be women. You know what I mean? And that's a word I don't take lightly, because there's a difference in being a true woman, rather than one that's just out for ulterior motives or whatever the case may be. And I think that's the problem, and I'll just address it because it's probably going to be controversial, but I don't care. That's the difference I have in same-sex marriages. When you have two men trying to raise kids, or you have two women trying to raise kids, they're missing out on the godly attributes that God instilled in things. He literally gave Adam a wife, Eve, to be a helpmate.
Yeah.
And that word is used, a helpmate. There's a reason that God created male and female, because even in the animal kingdom, other than a species or two of reptile, most of them require man and female to procreate.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a reason behind all that, and there's a great attribute that is brought in, and what they're going to take away. And I think that is the true problem by parents not being involved is we have generated this misconception of things the way it is now to the things that it's being forced in society with transgender and same sex and everything else. I mean, it is starting to evolve into a norm, and these kids, even the ones that don't come from those type of households, it's being forced on them, and that's not healthy. Nothing should be forced on any child.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it should be structurally developed within the home, and we do that by spending as much time or as much positive time with them as we can.
Yeah.
And so that's probably going to generate controversy, but it doesn't change my viewpoints on it in the way I feel.
Wouldn't be wrong, real, if it didn't, right?
No. That's it.
And two, I think it's important to know, like, maybe their fathers aren't involved, and that's a hard battle too, because I feel like as mothers, we don't see the impact we have, and when you're trying to play that double role because that's what you were placed into,
Right.
That's a hard one. And you just have to know that you're doing the very best you can do with the situation that you're being dealt. You can't make somebody grow up and want to be a parent.
True.
You can't make a parent want to be involved with their kids. You can't make anybody do anything like that. And that's hard.
No, it is hard. And, I mean, we've seen that from personal sides, and I've seen kids that have been forced to grow up way too soon, and I've seen kids that have never been made to grow up. And I can't help but feel like there is a negative impact on both of those.
Yeah.
There is a balance in there, and God expects us to have that balance. He talks about it all throughout His Word, both Old and New Testament. There's kind of standards or guidelines that He would like us to follow in order to have and receive the most good from this experience.
Yeah.
In fact, one of those is Isaiah 54:13. And it says, "In righteousness shalt thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression, and thou shalt not fear, and from terror." I need to back up to 13. Sorry, I was wrong. 14. My bad. It says, "And thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. In righteousness shalt thou be established, and shalt thou be far from oppression, and shalt thou not fear, and from terror, and it shall not come near thee." And one of the amplified versions of it, it says, "Children shall be taught by the Lord, and great will be your peace." And, one has to feel the same way that I do on this when it comes down to the point of seeing all these school shootings and different things like that. I mean, in most of those instances that we've heard about, parents weren't involved. They weren't paying attention to what was going on with their online status and different things like that. And these kids, they find their own way, and they weren't brought up in the ways of God on a consistent basis. Like, it wasn't a family unit going to church, or a family unit sitting down and having a Bible study or a discussion about the Word. God wasn't a major influence in their life. And so the world got to them and things went awry. And I think that's crucial, that it talks about, peace. Great will be your peace. And there is no peace at home in those situations, or else they wouldn't have reacted the way that they did.
Yeah. Well, I think it's in Proverbs.
Okay.
like it's talking about in Proverbs 29:15 and 17,
Mm-hmm.
talking about discipline. The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. Um, and that in the Amplified Version it says, but a child left undisciplined. And correct your son, he will give you rest. Yes, he will give delight to your heart. So
Right.
that discipline brings peace to your household.
It does.
Even though it does not feel peaceful at all in the moment. It feels like complete disruption.
Absolutely.
And chaos. That discipline does bring peace and delight to your soul.
Well, it's just a form of anarchy. I mean, where there are no rules, there's chaos.
Yeah.
And you can't help in agreeing with that. I mean, nobody can just live with a system of no rules.
Right.
It's impossible to have structure in anarchy. It's just people think it's going to be better, but it's really not. You wind up with situations like The Purge, is what comes to my mind, like the movie. There was also a movie a long time ago with Sylvester Stallone and Sandra Bullock and Wesley Snipes. I don't even remember the name of it, but there was this overpowering structure of too many rules going against this underground group of no rules and anarchy, and it was just a total collision course, both of them, that both are needed in balance to create perfect harmony. There's a middle of the road there, and we have to find that at home, and the only way we can do that is by finding balance with us and God, which infiltrates the home life into where there's enough time for us and have our time as a couple and our time as parents. And without God, I don't see how anybody can truly find that. It may look good on the outside, it may last for a little bit, but it's at some point there's going to be a tipping scale. Somebody's going to lose it. The kid's going to lose it, or the parents are going to lose it, and it's just going to fall apart. Without God holding everything, He must be the foundation. He must be that cornerstone that everything's built off of. Because if He's not, that house will fall at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And talking about involvement and going back to like video games, like I had no idea what my kids were playing.
They would kind of try to tell us, and we may be, involved in something work-wise or whatever, and we're trying to shut this off and pay attention, and I think you kind of get misconstrued a little bit.
I'm not a video game person. I never have been. I wasn't when I was younger.
Nope.
I'm not coordinated enough to play most of them.
I just don't like to sit still that long.
And well, that too, but like my friends have like Nintendos, and I just never wanted one. I wasn't good at them when I'd go to their house and they'd want to play. So I'm not a video game. Like, it takes a lot for me to play a game on my phone. And it's something like tiles or something. Like, something very easy, no thought, just... But when I finally, like, watched the other night what we're playing, I was like, wow.
We've gotten a lot more involved.
Really... been out of the loop. Like, I haven't been involved with you at all, and I'm wondering why I'm losing you, why you're retreating to your room, why you're retreating back, why you're, being silent, why you're not wanting to come to the table anymore, why you're not wanting to go outside, and I get it.
Two completely different
inhales them
versions of our kids based when we was on the road, and since we've, pulled off and had to pursue the next chapter in our life, so to speak, where it's taking a lot more of our time and taking a lot more time away from them. Two completely different sets or sides of our kids, because, sorry about that, it's truly been overwhelming to see the difference and the change, because we were just goers and movers and shakers and fishing and hunting and camping and playing, and now it's like we don't even want to be outside anymore. since we've been home, it's some of his friends have moved off to different areas of the town, and they're not as accessible. And so this has been a much easier outlet to suck off into, and it's not working. And we've been trying to implement change and get more back to what we feel is the right way to be. Um, you know, being involved with them a lot more than we have been.
I was ignorant to the fact that they're, preteens. Well, no, they're all teenagers now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, they're teenagers. They don't want to go play trucks. And I get that. I do. But that's not what we've always done anyway. So, like, I don't expect, a little girl to play with dolls because she's at a certain age. You just don't play with dolls anymore. So that was my ignorance. Like, this is just what they do. They're teenagers. And then I was like, what did I do as a teenager? I had a job.
I did. Times have changed, and we've talked about that multiple times in a situation. I started working in the summer at 12 years old. It took up my summers. Yeah. For a couple of reasons. I mean, one was like I wanted my own money, but two, I also knew that if I didn't go find something to do, mom or dad was going to have chores, and I didn't want to do chores. So I'd much rather be doing something that I wanted to do. So I started working, in the cotton fields type of situation at 12 years old, and pretty much worked ever since. Yeah. They don't have that. Our society is taking all of this stuff from us, and kids can't work, especially in these towns as small as ours. There's not a lot of outlets for them to go to. I knew people in my town that would help me out, and it's not the same anymore. Times have just changed, and it's led to a lot more difficult situations.
Well, we're having to learn, and we're having to grow, and we're trying to, we're having to figure it out. Like, it's not okay to play video games all day, but I mean, my goodness, what else are you supposed to do? Like, I kind of get it. I mean, what do you do? And like days like today, it's so windy and nasty outside. Most of us feel like crap. Like, what do you do? And so there's those days that, you just have to have more grace on those days. But the days that it can't be so much that those days happen more often than
yeah, and another...
Just trying to find that balance, I think.
Well, the other issue is, like, because of one of ours, medical status, we started homeschooling. Well, that changes things because we're done before some of their friends even get out of school. And it's so, like, things are limited to what they can do because everybody that they run around with or whatever may be in school and they're at home. Right. So it's like, and then they have homework or they have sports and, things like that. And we've tried to get our kids involved in outside activities, but they're not into the sport realm, and I'm not going to make them. If they don't want to play, I'm not going to force them to play. But I don't know. I mean, it's led to a lot of different obstacles that we've had to navigate around on that front. But another interesting topic is, you were talking about punishment earlier. The Bible says in Colossians 3:21, it says, "Do not provoke your children to anger." And I think that's been a battle we've had, especially dealing with one particular area of type 1 diabetes. It's changed a lot of the mannerisms. Things that normally didn't affect him have now started affecting him. And I don't know if it's the process of learning how to deal with the situation or if it's literally part of the medical problem itself. But it's changed a lot of his attitude, and setting him off is a lot easier, which in turn has led to ramifications with brother and sister too, because they're kind of tired of dealing with the emotional ups and downs and different things, and they're on edge and he's on edge and we're on edge, and it's been hard to navigate how to handle things without it causing a lot more anger. And taking that scripture literally into context is learning, how to get my point across and stand my ground without it provoking a fight.
When y'all figure that out, let me know.
And so I'm in the same boat. Like, I don't have a clue. I'm trying to navigate this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be involved as much as I can. But even on the front where maybe that's not the case with you, and maybe you don't have that situation or scenario, I know there's times when you're still trying to be a parent and get your point across, but at the same time, it like leads to a fight, and you're stressed out, and you don't know what to do, and nothing seems to work, and the only way I know to get through that in any shape, form, or fashion is I've started relying on God way more in that area than I ever thought. I was trying to rely on my instincts and my skills and things, and I can't. He's the only one that's going to be able to show me how to get through this one because, you know, apparently he knows what he's talking about. He wrote the book on it, so to speak. So I've got to lean on him. I've got to depend on him.
Yeah. I have a hard time with that one because my temper just, I lose it.
I know, and we've struggled with that for a long time. We would just
I
fall off the handle, and it doesn't benefit either side.
No.
We both wind up.
Because, like, you legit just want to slap him across his face. I mean, it's like, it's this rage that you can't describe, and then you do lose your temper and say things that you should probably never say to anybody. And then you have mom guilt.
Yeah.
That guilt comes in, and you're like, you are a piece of work, you know? And I finally learned that, and with this one, like, you can't walk away. Like, that's my natural instinct, is just give me 5 minutes to collect my head, because if I've got 5 minutes, I can usually pull myself together and make a rash decision. But, like, he doesn't believe in giving you 5 minutes. He wants an answer now, and he wants to know why, and he wants to know what's wrong, and it just pushes me to my breaking point. And it's hard because it's a struggle. It's still a struggle. They have gone down since but like now that we're setting boundaries and taking away some time on our gaming systems, we're starting to fight more battles about it, but they have decreased.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to, I don't know. Yeah, it was hard.
Sorry about that, guys. Guess they didn't get the memo that we were filming. On that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with Raw and Real with TJ and Jen. We're almost out of time on that, so I had to.
While y'all were taking a break,
That's still on.
We're still recording, but go ahead.
Can I go mow outside? I'm not feeling that sick. I just was gonna mow like either the front yard or the backyard.
There's nothing to
I
mow.
think the lawnmower's at the ranch.
And the lawnmower's at the ranch. Excuse me. I'm just saying, like, we were mowing out there.
Yeah, we were mowing at the ranch last time. It's not here. You just want to mow?
I just want to make some money.
Oh. You just want money.
Well, not that much at least.
Good to know you only want to mow when you want money.
I would do it any other time. What?
Buddy, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the lawnmower's not here.
Yes.
Like, it's not here. I don't know what to tell you. Clean your room, but I'm not paying you for that.
I'm making food.
Do you do anything just for free?
Do you stop listening into people's conversations, or?
It's just something here.
Hmm.
Do you want me to run and go grab some water?
You can if you want to. You want to ride with her and help her? I'm not
Get your
paying
shoes
you.
No, you're fine.
I don't know, buddy. I'll figure it out later.
I have to at least do it before.
Nothing like raw and real, huh?
It's 11 hours to 8, so that's why I'm hungry.
Hey, buddy, I don't know. I don't have anything for you to do right now at this moment. So.
Just an insight to raw and real behind the scenes right here. never ends.
That's my answer. I don't have anything for you to do right now that you can make money at. Like the lawnmower's not here. It's at the ranch. And I don't know what you're gonna mow. Everything's dead.
And we're back with Raw and Real. TK and Jen. YouTube got an insight that you'll miss on the podcast, so it's always an adventure and stuff around here.
That's what he wants money for, is to buy a different game.
Yeah, we talked
And
about
so
this last night at bedtime. He asked a question, and I thought answered it, but
At 1:30, we've decided we want to go mow a yard that doesn't need to be mowed because, oh yeah, it's winter and it's dead, but
you have to love the enthusiasm. Like, I mean, at least he's not just asking for free money. He's wanting to do something, and I'm proud about that. I mean, I am.
yeah. He wants me to stop now and take him out there so he can mow, because there is stuff that needs to be done out there, and we'll figure that out.
No doubt, there's always something
It's
that
on
needs to be done.
his mind, and that's what we've got to do right now. It doesn't matter that you feel like crap or that we're busy or we have stuff going on. So.
I love it. I know it's chaotic and it's all over the place, but it's our world, and I love it. I mean,
He's gonna be wishing he had asked for more than $10 by the time we get done working.
that's not very much as compared to the work that needs to be done out there, but
I'm like, I'll pay you $10, but it's gonna take you more than a couple hours. You need to rethink your business plan.
oh goodness. Well, kind of getting back to where we were talking about, a question that I wrote down is like, where's the line drawn? As far as, too much or not enough. Because I think it's something that we all question at some point from the time our kids are born until the time they leave the house, and even after the fact. I mean, I know you're going to always be involved in your kids in some shape, form, or fashion. And, as infants, they require so much attention. And then our whole plan, our whole purpose is to eventually mold and guide them into an independent person where they don't require as much of our involvement. But then we also want them to know that they can always come to us, and then they can always ask us questions, or that door's always open, so they don't feel like they're alone or abandoned. So, like, where is the line drawn, between smothering them or giving them what we feel like is enough?
That's hard because we have 3 completely different spectrums on that.
Yeah.
One comes to us with everything.
As you
One
just
of
saw.
us. No, I wasn't even talking about that one. I mean, we talk about everything. Everything's out in the open. Like, everything's raw and real. Like, anything is on the table.
Okay.
And then we have one that's not scared of us, but just, it's more like me, I guess, and like, doesn't love to talk, doesn't love confrontation, maybe doesn't know how to ask the hard questions, maybe. So you kind of have to pry things out of that one. You have to be the initiator and be like, what's going on, or are you upset about something? Because he's not just going to tell you he's upset. And then we have one that their feelings are everybody else's problem. He woke up in a bad mood and it's everybody's problem that day. And he's harder to talk to because there's no rationalization there. Like, you can't rationalize with that one. So it's like we have all 3 sides of that spectrum. And I don't know, it's hard to navigate between the 3 because they are all completely different in that aspect.
Yeah, and we've talked about this amongst ourselves so much in the years, and it is difficult because they are three different. It's like having three different businesses in a way. They all three have their own areas that you have to deal with on a constant basis, and it's way different for me being the only, because I never had to fight with a sibling. I never had to battle for position or dodge allegations or things like that. If something went wrong at my place, it was all on me. And they were like, you must be lucky. I was like, lucky for what? All the chores are on me. All this is on me. All that's on me. So I think everybody has their own perspective of what's good and what's bad. And I don't think anybody can do anything less but do the best that they can do. And I think that's all that we've been able to do is do the best. Like, try to take each one and remember. I think that's like the key. Remember that each one is an individual, their own individual. And you just have to deal with them accordingly. You cannot have the perfect answer all the time. You do the best you can. You make the best decision you can and hope that it doesn't do too much damage in the end. And I think we've made mistakes along the way. I think we've learned from those mistakes along the way. And we're probably going to make new ones tomorrow. And we'll learn from them. And I think that's the way. As far as smothering, I mean, I think it's a pretty clear line. If you don't know that you're smothering, I think there's other areas that you need to evaluate. I mean, smothering's pretty clear. They have to be taught. That is our job, to teach them how to be when they leave the nest. That should be the parameters of our job. And if we're not doing that, I think we need to work on that as much as we possibly can. And I think if we're doing it too much, we should know it. We should know that they're not having enough rope to make mistakes and learn from them and grow. Right. That's the whole way people learn. Nobody learns anything by getting the correct answer every time. Right. That's my main problem with this. Everybody gets a trophy. You're creating a environment that's out of balance for that child. They're going to learn that all they have to do is show up and they get rewarded. That's not successful in this world in reality, because that's not going to happen. When they leave home and they go to a job interview expecting to get it and they get told no, they're going to fall apart and freak out and go postal, worst case scenario. We cannot set our kids up to fail. We have to set them up to succeed. And in order to do so, we have to show them that there are good and bad scenarios in this world. We cannot just give them one side of the plate. We have to, you know what I'm saying? Right. We have to expose the whole platter to them and know that, there's going to be 15 different types of food on these. Some you're not going to like, some you are. But we take that away when we give them a trophy just for showing up, or, everybody gets a trophy. No, you got beat. It should be a good thing that you got beat, because now you figured out what doesn't work. You've also figured out that you have to work harder. You've figured out that you have to, put in some grueling time that you don't want to do if you really want to be victorious in this area of your life or whatever. And when we give them a trophy for just showing up, we take that away from them. So that's not good. But then, we can't hover over them and do everything for them. They're never going to learn anything.
You have to let them fall.
Yeah.
You have to let them make their own choices enough. Like, they're going to miss it. We're still missing it. Like, you think they're not going to miss it? Like, they're going to miss the mark. They're going to miss the boat. Yes, it's our job to be there to pick them back up. But there also comes that time when you have to let them fall. And you have to be like, okay, that didn't feel good. Like, what are we going to do next? And they have to make that decision. They have to make that choice. It's not just swoop in, pick them up, fix it, and let them go on. Like, and it's hard, too, to let that go when you have a past, or you've done things that you're not proud of. and you don't want them to make that same
Right.
mistake. And so now you're like really hovering. They're not going to make the same mistakes as you. They're going to go off and make their own mistakes and their own fails. And so you have to let that happen.
Well, a lot of times it's hard for me to do, and I catch myself doing this a lot at the ranch because there's some very dangerous stuff that could hurt them quickly and severely. But we've worked hard at showing them those life skills. When you get involved in a situation, dad or mom's not always going to be there to fix it.
Right.
You're going to have to put your heads together, or you're going to have to, initiate the concept of, I'm going to have to try this. I'm going to have to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes I catch myself in stealing that and then getting upset over the decision they chose. And I've had to back up and I've had to correct myself because I'm like, just because that's not the decision you made, you can't get onto them for making a decision
Right.
on their own when that was your initial goal, was to teach them to make that decision
Right.
on their own. And then you punish them for making the wrong one. You got to back up and correct yourself on that. You can't do that.
Right.
You have to be, supportive in that fact that, all right, cool. I'm glad that you made this decision. Thank God that you did that. Next time, maybe consider this or maybe consider that, and it may have a better outcome than the one that you got. And that's happened a lot, like building fence and different things that we've had to do out there, because I want to instill in them those life skills. I want to instill in them they need certain things to go on and be victorious in life. How to change the flat, how to change your own oil. Things like that are crucial. And I know that my dad did the very best that he could when I was growing up. There was still times after I left the house that I found myself in unique situations. And I learned, man, this would be great if I would have had some insight to this.
Yeah.
We never got into this. We never discussed it. So I've tried to take those and instill them into my kid's life now. And it wasn't that he did wrong. It's just I'm trying to do better. And I think we have to always want to, be better parents than ours were. That's what we should all strive to be. Not that ours was horrible, but it's just if we don't start improving. I mean, you look at technology of the car. If we never started making improvements, we wouldn't be driving the computerized things we are now. Not saying that's a good thing, but I'm just saying, like, improvements have to always be on the table, in my opinion.
Yeah. And with that, too, also comes that you can't prepare them for everything.
You can't.
Because you have no idea what they're going to go through. And so you can't prepare them for every little thing. But you also can't only prepare them because of what you went through.
No.
You have to set them up for success in that aspect to where no matter what comes at them, they have the thinking capabilities and skills to be like, okay, they have to have that ability to sort through things and work through things and know that not everything is an instant gratification. There's a lot of things that aren't even gratification at all.
Right.
And that's hard to watch when you want your kids to have the best and you want them to feel, on top of the world all the time. And when they're not, and it's those things that you can't fix, that's hard.
It is. It's difficult when you see them going through struggles and going through pain.
And you can't fix it.
And you have to remember, I think, too, that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make you crazy because deep down it's a good thing that they're struggling.
Yeah.
That's just it's an what's the word I'm trying to say here? It's an unnatural concept, but it's needed because it is not natural that we see joy or find comfort in their struggles.
Yeah.
But we have to find the comfort and the joy in knowing that they are becoming stronger because of their struggles. And through their struggles, they're going to be better off than if we protected them. And something I learned a long time ago in counseling was, you don't have the right to keep somebody else from going through something. And that's crucial to me because I find it more and more true as we grow older with wisdom and knowledge. Not that we're getting older, but as you progress in life, you gain wisdom, you gain knowledge, and I think that's important to understand that sometimes they need to go through the hard things in order to be better than they were, because if they don't, they're never going to be the fullness that God wants them to be.
Right.
And that's the whole, I think, message behind the Bible in itself from beginning to end is our situations that we go through build character. And that character is important because it helps evolve us into our true calling and our true purpose. Like we were talking earlier, there's no way that we can truly sit here and say, trust in God if you've never had to trust in God. I can't go in front of you and say, believe God for your every need, believe God for your every task, believe God for your every desire. And I'm sitting here with $2 billion in my bank account. I'm not saying that a billionaire can't trust in God. I'm just saying it's a lot less imperative to trust in God when you've got this security blanket to fall on if this doesn't work. If I go out there and I'm believing God for this building and it doesn't show up, that's fine. I'll just go buy it. Well, were you really trusting in Him to begin with, or was this just a backup plan? Like, well, I'm going to try to do it this way. If it doesn't work, I got a backup plan. Like, that's not really trusting in Him.
Right.
That's trusting in yourself.
Right.
In the same aspect, we have to be able to let our kids go and fall and fail, go through things in order to know that, they're truly going to be wiser and better at the end of the day.
And that's how you gain that knowledge. And then once you gain that knowledge, that's how it becomes heart knowledge.
Well, we've preached on that a few times.
And tell me that bridge is going to fall the moment you step on it. But until I step on it and see that bridge fall, that's when it becomes heart knowledge.
There's a difference between head knowledge and heart knowledge. I've always said head knowledge is knowing about something. Heart knowledge is experiencing something.
Yeah.
And it does. It becomes more real when you experience it than just knowing about it. Like when we were on the road, we went to Mount Rushmore, seen it in books 1,000 times. But when we went and we toured it and we read about it and saw everything and all the history involved, it was more heart knowledge. We experienced it. Yeah. And it was more real to us.
Never had a desire to go.
Never thought about it.
Now
I couldn't even tell you up until we went exactly where it was. I knew it was up north somewhere, but I didn't even know it was in South Dakota.
Not even going to tell you. I didn't know who was even on it. Like, I knew it was presidents, but I didn't know. I mean,
and
it was a bunch of rocks.
Dake sure didn't know why it was created.
Yeah. For
the reason and the purpose to stimulate, tourism in the state. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is crazy. But it's true, and I think it's imperative, that we learn that we need to be involved. But always being involved doesn't always mean being involved. Sometimes being involved is that space and that distance, and we're there if there's any questions, if there's any need for us, we're there. But sometimes being involved is not being involved. It's kind of a contradictory, but I mean, hopefully you understand where I'm going with this.
No, I'm with you 100%. I get it.
Oh, I guess the only other thing that I had really written down that I guess is important is, how are our kids gonna be in the current day-to-day stuff? Like, we need to be aware of their social skills, how they are towards being able to have conversation with others. How are they going to be in the workforce in society? Like, are they going to be able to interact well? And I feel like that's been one of the top 5 things on my agenda since we brought them into this world, is to make sure that they have those abilities. I feel like I've done well. In fact, I joke about it all the time. I'm like, they act better away from me than they do around me. So
That's
I guess that's a positive thing.
That is very
People all the time, your kids are just so well behaved and they do this and they do that. And I mean, even my young one will walk up and never met a stranger, shake hands and handle himself like an adult. And so I guess I could say I'm excited in that area because, excuse me, I wonder, like, have I been effective in that? And I think it's important that they are. I think we're losing that as a social skill altogether in America. There's a lot more jobs and stuff created where people don't have to interact. Texting, emailing, it's a lot of electronical communication.
Work from home, you don't see anybody ever.
And I got some ideas on that, but it's neither here nor there. For another topic for another day. But I think our government's trying to push us that direction so that they can control. They can control a lot. But anyway, nevertheless, until that day is completely gone, I think it's important that we get involved in that. We know what kind of friends they're running around with, what they're doing online, like we've discussed. How they are socially. Can they interact with other people in this world?
Yeah. Well, that was one of our big concerns when we went to homeschool, and that was everybody else's concern. How are they going to interact? How are they going to... Well, I don't know. I mean, we don't just sit them in a corner and not talk to them. I mean, we've always been big on talking to our kids at their age level. I don't think 3-year-olds need to hear government talk, you know what I mean? Like, we've always tried to talk to them on their age level, but I mean, they have interaction. They have to interact with each other. They've had to learn that you really made me mad as a sibling. I can't just punch you in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, that comes not just by going to school, and I think that's where so many people have missed that. It's like, well, if they're not going to school, they're not getting interaction. But they are. They're getting more interaction, and especially in the time we traveled, they had to meet people all the time that we didn't even know.
No.
And I think it's a lost art because I'm not a social person. I'm
putting it mildly.
No secret, like I'm just not. I never have been.
Right.
I was always the one hiding behind my mom, and I didn't like people, and we have one that's like that, and I don't worry about him because I do see him out and about, and he does fine. But if he doesn't have to, he's not going to. And I see that, and I made it as a nurse, and people are like, how are you even a nurse? I will talk, I don't know, sometimes you don't feel like you have anything important enough to say. I think that's more of it than anything. And I'd just rather listen to people than my opinion doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, you're telling me your story, like, what's my opinion going to do to that?
Yeah.
And I think he's that way too. It's like...
Yeah, that the middle one is a lot like you in a lot of aspects. I mean, and I think it's funny, but I worried about him for a long time. But he's really evolving into his own person, and it's been neat to watch because there's a lot of traits and characteristics there that I'm maybe not 100% satisfied with, but I don't want to sit here and overpower and force them into being what they're not, and that's a part of my involvement with them that's been probably the hardest, is trying to instill but not create. I don't want to create another me, but I want to impart as much into them as I think is going to benefit them and help them,
Right.
without controlling. Because I don't want to create another me, so to speak. And I think that's a problem we all face as parents is I think there's people that aren't in there enough and people that are there too much as far as that goes. We were talking about that line earlier, and I think that's one of those areas that's, kind of crucial for their development is that balance right there. And hopefully at the end of the day, I got it right. I try.
I think mainly you just want to push them to be the best them they can be.
That's it.
Not the best you they can be, not the best of their mom they can be, not the best of their grandparents they can be. It's just the best version of them, whatever that may be. I mean, I have no idea what any of their futures hold, but I want them to be the best version of them, and I want them to be okay with themselves.
Yeah.
I want them to be happy in themselves.
Well, they need to, in a way, value my opinion and support, because if they value it, I think what that'll create is when the time comes, they'll seek our guidance. Mm-hmm. They'll seek us and our opinion because it's valued. Right. They know that we're not going to make them do a certain thing, or they're not going to have to make the choice that we made, but they can take our opinion, they can seek our guidance, add it to whatever they're feeling or thinking, and come up with the best possible conclusion. And I think that's the best involvement that we could ever be for our kids, no matter how old they get, is being able to pick up the phone and hey, I'm in a situation I've never been in before. Like, what's your take on this? And us give a good assessment of the situation, and then they could still. And I think as long as you have that, they'll keep coming back. We're not driving them away. We're not overpowering them with rules and regulations. It's truly a guidance and an opinion, a debate, so to speak.
Absolutely. They have to have a say-so in their own selves.
Yes.
To a certain degree. Not saying. You know what I mean? I mean, they have to have knowledge of themselves, and they have to. I think it's imperative that they like themselves.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever taught that. Our culture, it just wasn't taught. And I think it's imperative that they like who they are and who they're becoming and who they want to be. And they have those dreams and those desires. And like the video games is not my cup of tea. It's not my thing. But my math teacher also told me that I would never have a calculator at my disposal all the time either.
I know.
And they're like, I can make millions of dollars playing these games, and I'm like, whatever. It's the same thing as my math teacher telling me that. Like, if that's truly their passion and what they really want to do, and we've had this conversation, that's fine, but you just sitting here playing them all day is not validating that point. Like, you're going to have to start making moves towards a different direction. Sitting here playing it all day doesn't mean that that's what you're going to do forever. And so I think they have to like themselves and truly validate what they're going after and what their true dreams and their goals are. And they're going to change.
They are, and I've struggled there too, trying to not be what I didn't want to be. I know, like, when I was growing up, my parents did not want me to rodeo for them. They didn't think it had any value, any meat, even though I saw it a certain way. And I promised that I would never be that type of parent. And I've caught myself going down that road, and I understand their viewpoint a lot more now after going through it. And you're right. There is a difference between supporting their dreams and being involved in their dreams and being involved in supporting their downward spiral. Because as long as a positive outcome exists, I think we need to support that and guide that. But when they're just sitting there wasting their days away, mindlessly playing, that's not something we need to support. That involvement is negative in their development. Because if you want to do this, that's fine. But let's, in a way, treat it like the career that it could become, and put the time and invest the energy into making it into something positive rather than just a mindless. It's the same equation of an influencer. You can't say you're an influencer on social media if all you're doing is scrolling through other influencers on
Right.
social media. There comes a time when you actually have to put in the work, invest the time, and treat it like the job that you're trying to be. Watching other ones isn't getting that accomplished. It's not going to have any contract signed on your door.
Right.
That's kind of the same thing.
No, absolutely it is.
So, man, we covered a lot and a lot more than I thought it was going to go. Without sounding like we're beating a dead horse, is there anything else? Well, if y'all have any,
I do.
what's up?
Just having that open communication with them, and having the hard conversations,
Okay.
I think is imperative. One of ours is very easy to have the hard conversation with. Very receptive, open-minded. One of them looks at you like they don't want to be in this conversation. We don't want to be talking about this. We don't want to have that. And then one of them is just whatever. But be open to have those hard conversations, but also be open to hear them out on their side of those hard conversations. Not because you're going to give in and see it their way, but sometimes you are going to see it their way and you're going to be like, I'm wrong. It's okay for you to be wrong, I think, is a big takeaway.
No, that's a great point.
My parents were never wrong. And I would argue until I was blue in the face, but they were never wrong. And I've realized, like, I am wrong sometimes. There are some things that they are right about. And not that they need to know that, to boast about and throw it in my face that I was wrong about this, but but listening to them and hearing their take on it sometimes does change our perspective. And it's like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Just having that open communication like you would with anybody else.
I know in my household there was a division, and I knew that division. I knew that division all through growing up. And this is hard because I'm not trying to speak, ill of the dead, but Mom was raised in a very structured household where there were no wavering. And it carried on, as we discussed, happens into her parental skills. Dad had a more open concept, and this is nothing that I wouldn't say to her face, so I feel okay with it. But, Mom was because I said so. No, why? Because I said so. That was the way it was. Dad would give me a rule, and I would be able to come to him and say, well, this is going on. Like, can we meet in the middle here? Like, the curfew's 10. Well, we're going to watch movies, and it may last a little bit longer. Like, can we do a 12? And I would get the middle of the row answer and would be like, well, you call me at 11, and we'll go from there.
Right.
There was a deal. And so going along with what you were saying, parents aren't always right.
Yeah.
Just because you see it this way doesn't mean it's the right way. And I do think that there is a lot we can learn from our kids. For why else would the Bible say, for out of the mouth of babes? There's a reason in that. There's a moral reasoning behind that, because kids can still show us a lot. And I think it's important that we're involved with them in the way that, like you say, we can learn from them and be better, even as parents, than just the things that we see or the parameters that we operate in. So I totally agree with that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
After that, I'm done.
After that, you're done. Well, we appreciate it, guys. We truly hope you have a blessed New Year's, and we're looking forward to the next year and all the things that are going to come of it. We appreciate all your support and helping us do what we set out to do when we started these. The likes, the subscribes, the views, it's been humbling. Podcasts, YouTubes, social media stuff, blogs. It's all been neat. So we're excited. we're pumped to see where this next year takes us, and we thank y'all for a great year of Raw and Real with TJ and Jim.
Absolutely.
All right, bye guys.
Guys.